we're going to talk about immigration. And if you are like me, you know it exists, you know there's policies, you know there's problems, and that's about all you know. Okay, that's about all I know. So thankfully, we have people here today who are going to educate us. How this came to be is mostly because of what's happening with Core Civic. So I'm going to ask our guest speakers to introduce themselves and just kind of their background in brief, because some of them have long backgrounds in regards to immigration, on immigration policy, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the country, what's going on here in Leavenworth. So I'm going to turn it over to the sisters, and Justin, take it away.
It's all you.
It's all mine, okay. My name is Sister SisterTherese Mack. Most people that I work with call me Elena. And I'm a Sister of Charity 60 years. And 42 of those years I spent in Peru. So I'll talk a little bit about that background when I give a little bit of the theme about immigration.
I'm Sister Therese Spangard, also a Sister of Charity. I'm 2 years older in community than, 3 years older in community than Elena. I'm 63 years. Somebody in 1987 invited me to go to the Kansas legislature, and I thought, oh, I could go there maybe and learn that process. I knew nothing about it at the time I was living in Topeka. So I started that journey with the death penalty issue, which we're still working on. But as the years went on and immigration things began to ripen and be there, I also do immigration, but things also that pertain to affordability for low-income families. So, and I've always been a fan of the League. You're workers for our democracy. Thank you.
Combined experience, I feel small now. No, again, my name is Justin. I am with a group locally known as the Carceral Accountability Council. I practiced that 1,000 times before coming in to say it because I still cannot get that out correctly. And then I'm with the city's Core Civic Community Relations Board. So those two are my professional credentials here in Leavenworth. Other than that, I work for a nonprofit in Kansas City, Missouri that runs Kansas City Academy, social justice oriented school. And right now we have privately, through this situation that we have in this country, 3 students who their parents are dealing with the immigration situation pretty badly. And so we are a haven for them at this time with other impacted groups. So I'm here to learn just as much as I'm going to speak a little bit.
So I've asked our crew to talk about a short brief on systemic problems with immigration policy in the United States and Kansas. And I say short, in all fairness to our guests. If you can summarize for us what you've learned through your years and what the systemic problems are, and then to move on to what our issues are here in Leavenworth. Sister Therese, you wanna?
Well, you suggested, Kelly, that I share this story at the beginning. And you know what I just discovered, Elena, that I have 2 of these. So if you do the R and I'll do the C.
Okay.
But I'm gonna stand, I just feel better standing. But,
Okay, if you're
So-
gonna stand, I'm gonna stand.
So this is a story, it's called an excerpt from Overheard by Convent Walls by Sister Mary Adolph Schuley.
Okay. The context: in 1969, when Sister Mary Adolph was still ministering at Mount St. Joseph's home in Kansas City, a resident there, Mrs. Amelia Hayes, invited her to be a companion on a trip to Fatima. Sister Mary Adolph was elated and asked Mrs. Hayes what she needed to do first. Mrs. Hayes informed her of the need for a passport and told her to go to City Hall and apply for one. After having obtained permission from the community to go off to City Hall, she went. The rest of her story is best told in Sister Mary Adolph's own words.
At City Hall, I was immediately asked,
Are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, I was born in Baden, Germany, but I became a citizen when Mr. and Mrs. Adolf Schule came to the United States in October of 1911. After searching the records, they found my uncles, Carl and Franz Schule, but no Adolf Schule.
Well, Senor Schule, it appears from the records that you're not even here.
That seems very funny to me. Here I am talking to you and you say that I'm not even here. The officer called New York trying to locate the records, and I was told,
Go home and bring any records you have of your birth and arrival in the United States.
I called my brother Joe in Atchison and asked him to search in the old trunk in the attic for a brown envelope containing the needed information. We found the record of our arriving in New York on the ship, the Queen, telling of their departure from Germany with 2 children. My brother Franz died on the journey and was buried at sea. I duplicated the records and took a copy to the office. It took a week before they were able to find any record of our arrival. It proved we arrived 3 months later. No record was found of our becoming citizens.
Do the Sisters of Charity know they are harboring an illegal immigrant? You're not even a citizen. Do you vote?
Yes, I vote. I thought I was a citizen. But now how can I get a passport?
I can get you a one-way ticket.
Then I won't go.
I might even arrest you as a spy, unless you can find someone who knows your family.
Uncle Carl and Uncle Franz attended St. Benedict's College. Monsignor Koch knows them, and I have 5 brothers born here.
Get the signatures of 5 persons who have known you for 10 years. Only 2 can be Sisters of Charity.
So I got Monsignor Koch and 3 friends from Atchison who had arrived on the same ship. Then I was sent to get my citizenship papers. I was told I would have to wait until the judge came to town, which was 1 week before we were to leave for Fatima. There were 5 other people waiting to become citizens, preparing to answer questions. They seemed very nervous and unsure that they would be able to pledge allegiance to the flag. I assured them, telling them that the judge would help them. As soon as I spoke, the judge said,
How long have you been in the country? You don't talk like a foreigner.
I've been here since I was 2 years old. It was easy for me to answer questions. I knew President Nixon was in Washington, D.C. and had no difficulties. However, the judge again said,
You mean you voted for president without being a citizen?
Well,
I guess you had squatters' rights.
after the papers were signed, a photographer took a picture of new citizens and President Nixon's picture was in the background. It appeared in the Kansas City Star the next morning, so I got calls from priests and many people who saw the picture all chiding me for not becoming a citizen before this, deceiving everyone.
During all this time of uncertainty, Sister Mary Adolph kept saying,
If Our Lady wants me to go to Fatima, she'll straighten all this out in time. And so it happened. I think for me, this story points out a couple things. One is the path to citizenship was much simpler because she did get a passport and time to go. But the other is Sister Mary Adolph took care of the elderly for years. She had spunk, as you can tell in her answers, and she had spirit. Did she not contribute to this nation? So who is an immigrant in our midst, and what does it mean? But I said this immigration topic I find heavy. So a little lightness about Sister Mary Adolph and her story that is in our own group. I guess maybe some people could say, well, there are people who aren't citizens voting. I doubt that happens today. I work the elections. I know how much chain of command we have on everything. So, but just wanted to start with that. Then I passed those out. Those of you who can see one of those sheets. This was, if you look, it's from 2011. So it's old, but it still, I believe, gives a picture of how complicated the immigration process is. And when it says that the time depends on what country you're from, So the waiting times from different countries are longer. I just had a group of these yet, and I thought I'm just gonna bring them and give them to you, and you can look at them at your leisure. So my immigration expert friend, I said to her, how true is this for today? And she said, the paths are narrower and longer and a ton more expensive. So all those fees have gone way up for people in their applications. And if you don't want yours, you can leave it on the table in the back. I see that a couple people don't have them, but anyway, I think that that is an explanation about the paths to citizenship that have narrowed and gotten a lot more expensive. And I think it talks about the systemic issue that Congress has not addressed. They couldn't even, back when Brownback was still our senator, give a path to citizenship for the dreamers, who we call the young people who've come to our country and and have graduated from our high schools. They couldn't even agree on a path to citizenship for them, much less the larger group. Do you want to say anything more about systemic things? Or does anybody have questions? Not that I might be able to answer them. I'm not an immigration lawyer, but it is so complicated. It's all the policies are so complicated.
I'm browsing the sheet that you gave us. Does it have the dollar amount to become, I know it's expensive to become a citizen.
I don't know that amount. I know a long time ago it was like 500.
It's more than that now. Even for getting DACA renewed, it's in the thousands now. So it's not that simple, and it's not that cheap.
Although at this point, they're not doing any renewals on DACA.
Yeah.
So they are deporting the young people who've had DACA because they're not letting them renew their DACA status, which gives them a social security number and the ability to work. And I personally know a young woman who's going through that, a college graduate, has a new baby, and she now, because she hasn't been able to renew her DACA, she is now undocumented and vulnerable to deportation.
It was advertised through, I saw it even in the Star, that what people who have their TPS taken away, now they can just apply for become a legal. That's not true. There is no pathway for our people who have been suspended from the TPS. That's Haitians and people from Afghanistan, from all kinds of ways that they have escaped terror, violence, and political oppression. Now, all of a sudden, they find those things suspended, and they have applied. They've gone to the lawyers. Nope, we don't know how to do it. Even though it says, from Homeland Security's point of view, all they have to do is just legitimize their stay in the United States. Not true. And TPS, temporary protected status. People have left countries. Afghanistan is one of them. We supported the people who supported us in the military. And also Haiti is another big, big group of people. But all of a sudden this is suspended. So now you have no driver's license, no way of getting a social security card or having a work permit, because that's been taken away. So it's still being debated somewhat, but that is truly what's happening, and people have no recourse.
On that sheet, it tells about the H-1B, it's at the bottom line, the H-1B visas. Now, at this time, they were capped at 85,000, but this is the visa that someone who's gonna do landscaping for a company, the farm workers, but those visas are immediately, that the quota on them is immediately reached as soon as they're made available. So, yeah. And I don't know, it seems to me like I heard that they were upping that number, but I don't know the number. But the H-1B visas are, the companies can get those and then get workers. But the companies have to prove that there's not a US citizen that can fill that job, and that they've tried to get US citizens to fill the jobs. And I remember a landscaper, the head of a big landscaping company from Kansas City, coming and giving testimony to the legislature. This has been a lot of years ago. But he said, are you legislators encouraging your kids to become landscapers? Or to work in the meatpacking plants? I just want to know.
I have some information on this. In 1984, I became a citizen, but I was also married to a military person, which made it somewhat easier. But I also had to pay $3,000. I had to pay for my own medical evaluation. I had to pay for the lawyers. I had to pay for various other things that had to be submitted on my behalf. I had to be vetted by the FBI. All of those things cost money. And I realized at the time, I thought, well, that's quite a bit of money, but I'm sure it's more than that now. It's got to be more than like $3,200, which I think is what Naomi paid for me. But, and the time is a lot longer. I mean, I got my green card pretty quickly after I'd gone through that. I got a green card without trouble. But when I gave it up, I became a citizen. I was one of the certificate and everything, thanks to the legal voters, who were down there at the courthouse with me in Kansas City, Kansas. But it was expensive, time-consuming, even back then, in 1984.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. And now the military, they're not necessarily honoring that about military spouses, as I understand it now.
That I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
So when you have somebody that's here, and they become undocumented, just like they're not honoring the renewal of the DACA, how do they get help? Do you help them, or I mean, it just seems to me there's I don't even know how those people survive.
Elena? I mean, I can just say that one of my favorite immigration lawyers says, all I can do is give people a Kleenex for their tears. And you hope that ICE doesn't pick them up. Elena,
This is kind of off the main idea, but I saw on TV that the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, was advocating for those Haitians who are in his state, and said that they're good workers, they're conscientious. Have you heard anything about what the status of those people is?
As long as they're with TPS, I think it's across the board that that's been suspended. And there's a lot of advocates out there saying, hey, we gotta reconsider this. And the theory is, well, things have gotten better in Haiti. However, if you look at a list of countries where they're telling American citizens not to go, Haiti's one of the number ones, like, don't go there. So if it's dangerous for them, it's also dangerous for us. So we're saying the dangers have not been eliminated. The other piece of this is, and it's very critical, we support a community in Haiti, Sisters of St. Anthony of Fondwa, and they're doing their best to grow crops, get people into a good situation. But so many of the people of Haiti depend on whatever pittance that the Haitians here can send back. So not only are you drying up the economy of Haiti, but you're also putting people who don't have a job, don't have a house, and don't have food, and shipping them back. I mean, really, it's a lose-lose situation. We're losing workers who do healthcare in Florida, take care of the senior citizens throughout that state, and there's gonna be a real drought in terms of who can do the kinds of work they're doing. So I think we have to look at, Americans will lose if these people are deported, because they are doing all kinds of service-oriented jobs, but they're also continuing to help their own country stay afloat. in a time that's very serious.
I also appreciate your bringing that up, because there are good people who are raising their voices about these injustices, and we need to support them and tell them that we noticed, and they're asking Congress to do something about the Haitians, and so we need to say to our Congress people, you know, did you hear what Governor DeWine said? I mean, can you not join his voice around policy? But there are good people in high places that are saying some things that support people. I hear that Florida really will have a big minus of people to do healthcare, and we know that's home to a lot of people who are older like us. Yeah.
So you testified in the Kansas State House about immigration issues. What is the latest one that you have taken on in the State House?
So back in the early 2000s, those were the days when we used to be able to have a rally of immigrants. They marched to the Capitol. They weren't documented. They would march to the Capitol, and they asked for, we had two primary bills at that time: in-state tuition, which just says that if someone who's not documented came here as a child, or a teenager really, has spent 3 years in a Kansas high school, that and they have to qualify. So they have to have some academic know-how. They can go to any of our Kansas Regents schools for in-state tuition. They still pay tuition. They pay fees, all of that just would be in-state. The other is to have a license so that people who aren't documented can have a driver's license, because they have to drive, and they are driving. And so in 2000, and so we started working that in 2000, and in 2004 it became apparent that we weren't going to get both of them. So the decision was, we thought we had a better chance of getting in-state tuition than we did the driver's license. So we did get in-state tuition in 2004. It was a bipartisan issue. I tell people that Derek Schmidt, I think he represents you too, and represents me now, north of I-70 in Wyandotte County, that he voted for that. And so did Susan Wagle, who then became president of the Senate in Kansas. Both of them voted for that policy. It was bipartisan because the legislators listened to the stories of the young people who came and talked to them. And I still remember the young woman who said, I don't want to flip hamburgers, I want to be a teacher. And so, but now for 22 years, people have come back and said, that's wrong, Chris Kobach, it's against federal law. For 22 years, we've had votes in the legislature to get rid of it. This last year, that bill came before the Senate committee. Then the House committee, Fed and State Affairs, didn't like the bill, and the chair just decided not to run it. And he had support from different people. Well, this year, Kobach came back and says it's against federal law, we need to get rid of this. So they passed the bill, a long story short. They passed the in-state to get rid of repeal. What I was more concerned about in that bill than the in-state was there was a piece in there that said any service that the community provides and is connected to any federal funding, that you have to check to see if somebody's a citizen before you can give it to them. So this would impact harvesters. So when people give boxes of food on a Saturday morning, you have to check to see if people are citizens or not. Now, can you imagine that? If there's been federal money put into a swimming pool, you'd have to check whether or not people are citizens before they could get into the swimming pool. Because I suspect this library has federal funding. You would have to check whether somebody's a citizen before they could use the library. Now, that didn't get the attention that I thought it needed, personally. But that was part of that bill. So what happened is, the House, well, long story short, on the Senate side, when it came for their final vote, Tim Schallenberger, who ran for governor at one point in Carolyn and I's days, Senator Tillotson and I's days, he got up on the Senate floor. He gave a 10-minute speech about why we needed to keep in-state tuition. And he said, and he's Republican in leadership in the Kansas Senate, I will not be voting for this bill, and I hope the governor vetoes it. And then Senator Rose, who just rose up out of, and it's his first term in the Senate, stood up and talked about his faith, and do you think Jesus would be for this bill? So the vote was still to pass the vote out, 22 to 18, but the governor vetoed it, and then they did not have the votes to overturn or veto. One of the few bills that they didn't have the votes to overturn or veto.
Sister,
Uh-huh,
you're a nun?
I am,
assume.
uh-huh.
My name's Lisa Fraser. Just when the time comes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when the time comes, my great-grandfather was a mayor here. He was a city commissioner here, Henry Fraser, back in the 1920s. He helped oversee the building of City Hall. My father was retired one grade below an associate warden in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. He worked for them for 25 and a half years. Kenneth Fraser. I've left the Roman Catholic Church over immigration. When the time comes, my brother was murdered by a Mexican driving with no auto insurance. I'd like to address you, ma'am, when the time comes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'd like to address all three of you and the people here.
Okay, and maybe that, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm a crime victim. So was my brother, at the hands of a Mexican man that didn't belong in my country.
That
We'll
is-
have time after, we'll have
Yes,
definitely have
ma'am.
time after.
Thank you.
So,
Do you see anything coming up in the Kansas legislature?
I was gonna say, another issue that passed was that the 287G is the law enforcement, that local law enforcement can do the work of the federal law enforcement. The legislature passed a bill this year that said the sheriff does not have to go to the county commission to have that approved. Before, the county commission had to approve the sheriff's ability to be part of federal law enforcement.
And do they get funded for that?
Yes, they do get funded.
So the sheriff's department gets funded
Mhm.
for that service?
Right, and I forget, there's something like maybe $1,000 a person
Yeah,
or
I
something.
understand.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
I don't know, Elena, do you know? Yeah. So, so that was something that the Kansas legislature passed. They also passed that you have to keep a 25-foot perimeter around the ICE agents, law enforcement agents. You could be arrested if you get too close. They did something about jails too, and I know that's been a concern of the sheriffs because if there's not some kind of a detainer, they don't keep people in the jail. But anyway, they did something that makes the sheriffs not vulnerable to being sued because they kept somebody in the jail who shouldn't have been detained.
So maybe that leads us to Leavenworth and what's going on here now. And so, Justin, you're a member of the Core Civic,
Community Relations.
thank you.
Committee,
Community Relations
Commission.
Committee. Are either of you sisters a member of the?
No.
Oh, Sister Michael Dolores is.
Okay.
Yes. They're all connected. Ashley Hernandez is sitting right there too. So with the sister church, somehow there's a web. Thank you both for saying all this because honestly, I want to speak from the perspective of how this all ties together because a lot of stuff was said, your experience internationally, the information that you gave about people coming from other countries. Ma'am, the information you gave about being a military spouse. I'm a military brat, born in Germany, and something became very apparent to me more recently, and I will hit on race for a second because I'm African American, and I was born in Germany, and that has never crossed my mind as anything big. At the time that I was born, dual citizenship, you would get that. You're born on a military base, that's federal soil. You come back here, immediately you're an American citizen. I was born off base, so for a little bit I held dual citizenship, specifically as a German citizen, and then of course that snapped back when we processed work, and then I moved to West Point, New York. Why does that matter? It matters because we are in a weird time. We're in a time that you hear the term driving while brown. It's not weird in any other circumstance. In history it has been, but to this point it's touching everybody, because even though I can say in my mind I don't believe this would happen, but there is a real possibility that I could be driving. I'm brown. All of a sudden, you can look at NCIC, a cop can, and see way back to my birth, and an assumption could be made. Maybe there's some discrepancy. There was a lady from Ireland who traveled, if you guys heard this story, last year I believe she traveled back to Ireland for Thanksgiving. She has been a citizen for 15 years. She came back from Ireland and was arrested because of a $25 bad check. That's why and that was 10 years in the rear, that she long took care of. It was a bad check because her account bounced. That was it. But they detained her for 150 days from Ireland. So all that matters, everything that you just heard matters, because from the perspective that I'm about to speak on, which is with the CAC and with the Core Civic Community Relations Group, this stuff hits locally. And I see it, the sisters see it, especially Ashley sees it, because all of a sudden it comes down to community level. If you go into the facility, if you deliver stuff to the facility, all of a sudden you start seeing people. Not everybody is a criminal. Not everybody's done a heinous crime. And this will kind of go towards your point.
Yeah,
Hold-
I'll tell you everything
hold
that
on.
happened,
Yeah.
believe me.
Not everybody is in there because of a heinous crime. I think that we all agree that whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, a heinous crime is a heinous crime. That should be tried in a court of law, and hopefully justice comes. But
I've had
everybody,
no justice, none.
right, I understand that. But not everybody is in a detention facility because of something of a major crime. You can make the argument, hey, any law broken is a crime. But let's look at things in perspective. What I see, what the sisters see, what Ashley sees, are people who went to work, and all of a sudden, 4 hours into their shift, their organization got raided. I speak about when I used to be a realtor, and I sold a house to a family, a Hispanic family, who they were very honest with me. They had to pay cash for a $15,000 home in Kansas City, Kansas on the east side. Husband was in construction, he knew he could fix it up, it was easy. But he was very upfront with me as to why he was paying cash, because they were undocumented. It meant absolutely nothing to me on the grand scheme of things, because it's a human aspect. I was raised in faith too, it's a human aspect, I don't care. So one of the things after they showed me the house, it was his wife and 4 kids. I was gonna go home, and they asked me to stay and eat. That's important again, because I'm dealing with people I didn't know. These are humans, and if that situation was today, who knows? I don't even know where he is at. He could be literally down the street in our facility. I don't know that. But I can tell you that his story is like so many other stories, that you're talking about a crime that we don't know the background on. We don't know if somebody said our life, my family's life, or my personal life is so much in danger that I'm willing to cross the border of the United States, regardless of their law, to get work, to find safety for health reasons. We don't know that. So when I do work for the CAC, when I sit on that board and hear different situations from the warden, or when we sit on the board, you know, we're listening because we are going to use our background. We're going to use any professionalism that we have, but we're going to use a sense of humanity to say what is egregious and what's not. And so we're not always coming at things from the situation of the most egregious crime. Sometimes we're coming at this thing from a situation of there's lights at night and I can't sleep with lights. I need an eye mask. You go from living your life, going to work 9 to 5, or, you know, whatever these hours are that some of these people are working, and you eat when you want because you have a paycheck. You go home, you have snacks, you've got warm water in your house, everything is normal. And then just like that, you're in a facility where now everything that you're doing is dictated. Everything. It's 3 meals a day, but what happens in between that? I know that if I was to do 3 meals a day, I would be in such a bad situation. I'm not the biggest guy, but trust me, I eat like I am. And so it's not normal. None of this is normal. So the perspective that the CAC looks at it, the perspective that I would like to say the city of Leavenworth looks at it, the city of Leavenworth looks at this from a special use permit. This is about the law, but it's about the local law. This is about allowing a facility to operate under federal law in a free country. It's funny I say that, but it's about that, but how this applies to the city of Leavenworth. So the city of Leavenworth is going to look at this a little bit differently. This is done in a very, you know, A, B, C, black and white situation. The board is made up of many of us who have different backgrounds, and we can look at the situations and say, this isn't right, or this needs to be fixed, this needs to be addressed, or this needs to be penalized. CAC and the sisters, this is about humanity. This is about things on the very granular level where we're saying, you bleed red, your heart pumps, you are the same as me. Nobody cares about the color of your skin. Nobody ever should have cared about that, but that's where we are today. Because again, I keep saying, this is not normal. So, can she have, I'm curious about what she has to say. Can she say, because we don't have to, but I do have a point that I would like to make to you on this. And I'm sorry for whatever you've gone through, I will say, because
It was a murder case, sir.
Right, and I'm not going to pull that fully in here, but I will say this. When, I don't know where the background is of your story specifically, but I will say,
I'll tell you all about it.
I will say this. When those of us who are specifically speaking up here, and I think probably most everybody in this room, when we're looking at this en masse, it is very easy for us to hear a bad story or to see the things on the news. It's very easy for us to then to hear our president speak and figure that every single person who is being detained, every single person on the news that we see has done so much more than walked across, and I'm going to say this, an imaginary line. It is a border, it's our border, but walked across. We take the humanity out of it. We take their life situation out of it. We look at this as just a simple, they did a crime, and everything else goes away. That's how things are being portrayed in the country right now. And until we get back to a level where things like the sisters are doing, things that we're doing with the CAC, until we get back to a level to say that the most egregious crimes are not en masse. Most people are coming over here for reasons that we will never know, and we will not actually know any of these people are undocumented. Most of the time, we're probably walking around them and have no clue because they're doing the same things that we're doing. We're working and everything else. Until we get to that point, we're gonna be in this situation, or until we get a different president, different administration, Congress shifts, we're gonna be in this situation. So we have to understand these things.
How many people are in the facility?
I think
Because we've not heard anything.
Right.
Once the special use permit, there has been like virtually no coverage
Right.
of the facility.
I think I even just got updated numbers. It's just south of 500 now.
Okay.
South of what?
500.
And are they from the local area? Were they picked up here or were they?
No, this is regional because we are from Chicago all the way down to north of Texas to Colorado, and then
Okay.
I think that we're on the eastern border for us.
Okay. And you would say the majority are, they just were they were at work and the workplaces got raided?
My last conversation with the warden was that most of these people, they are not high offenders. There are high offenders in our facility, yes, and they're separated, but the majority of them, from my last conversation, just regular workers.
What do you and the committee actually do when you're in the facility?
I gotta laugh. Well, here's the honest answer to that question. We're learning. That's what we're doing because this has never been done.
Right.
If you are online, if any of you guys are online, you're gonna see a lot of stuff, and I just wanna rip the Band-Aid off on this. You're going to see positives and negative comments about what we do, because honestly, we don't even know what we don't know. We are doing something that is literally historic and will set a precedent going forward in this city. We are a small town. The state of Tennessee tried to do what we did in Leavenworth, and it practically bankrupted the state to the point where they had to give up. The city of Leavenworth could not continue this, or we were gonna suffer higher property taxes and everything else. But what we did was we had smart individuals who were very focused on the situation and said, how can we address this problem? And that's how the SUP was born. Is it perfect? No. But that's what the board is for. We are all there because we understand, I think I've talked to every single person on that board. We understand there's a human aspect. And so we're going to listen on that level, and we're going to apply it to the SUP and find that common ground there.
Do you listen to the staff or do you actually listen to the individuals who are incarcerated?
So we have the ability to go in there. We have the ability to have passive conversations with the detainees. That's where we rely, I'm a part of this. That's where the CAC, the sisters, that's your voice inside, because we can hear those voices on the board. We have a rule where we can go in there and everything, but our conversations are passive. If somebody wants to come and talk to us, they can talk to us, but we don't actively say, tell us exactly why you're here. We don't get that private information. When we are on the board, the warden and a couple of her staff members are in there. They give a report. That report's gonna get better. If anybody has heard, that report has been sparse. It's gonna get better. We listen to that. That gives us general information, and then we can ask questions.
Previously, I know they had issues with understaffing, and I mean, that was one of the reasons that the guards were in danger.
Right.
What do you feel the situation is for the people who work there?
The staff ratio is, from what we understand, is at a 0.4, I believe. You correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was at 0.4, I think, and that's above what they had. So basically, if you believe in fractions of humans, it's 1.5 to every detainee.
Mm-hmm.
So they're higher, or their pool is higher than what even the city said that they had to have.
Yeah.
So what do you actually see when you're there? Are you there all day? Are you there an hour?
We're there. I think we've breached an hour before, but we're there about an hour. Did you?
No, there's someone in the back there.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in.
Yeah.
As a board member, can you speak about what the day looks like, what the schedule is like? I volunteer at Lansing Correctional Facility, and I know the inmates there have jobs and they go to school. What's the experience like? Do you know how long they stay there before they're deported or.
Could you repeat her question before you answer?
So if I understand your question, she's asking what the daily schedule is for a detainee. And the second question, what's their stay looking like?
Are they there for a specific amount of time?
Right.
Or?
Yeah, so as far as their daily routine, I believe on our next meeting, we're actually gonna be addressing that. Misty's gonna actually bring that schedule. I've had conversations with her, and I'll honestly open it up if you wanna say anything too, but their daily schedule, it varies. That's what we learned from this last meeting. It varies by, it follows a standard, I think she even mentioned Lansing schedule, just like that. You're going to have recreation time, you're gonna wake up, you're gonna eat, recreation. If they have other activities in between there that volunteers can do, anybody, by the way, can become a volunteer. They can do that. Then it's back in their specific unit, eating. I think that there's a secondary recreation time, and this is all based on if they would like to go out. So it's not forced. And then meal, and then they're back in their unit, and then the lights are out. Yes.
Okay, one thing, is it, families there? Is it just men, or is it men and women?
Yeah.
And are these people just sitting there waiting to be deported? That's the only
Right.
solution that's going to?
Correct. Let me answer, so this, I forgot your second question, so I'll answer it here. There's men and women, not families. And the men and women are separate. The answer, to answer your question and back to yours too, it was known that it was supposed to be 50 days. What happened was we found out that in our region, there are 4 judges that are looking at these cases. 4. The last time I checked, there were 50,000 cases.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'll let that sink in for a second.
Wow.
So the idea of 50 days is no longer, as a matter of fact, it was what was thought to be, but it was never going to be applicable to this region because our facility is becoming such a saturated facility, and this region is more saturated. What I do understand from one of our lawyers is that, and this is gonna sound weird, when I heard it, it didn't make sense. It is actually to their benefit for it to go longer than 50 days. Why is that? Because that gives the judges actual time to look in full at their cases instead of, kind of herd them through. And that's what had been happening. So it gives his team also time to actually reach out to some of the detainees and say, let me look at your case if it's a harder case.
Can I just add something here? A thing that I have learned about the judges is that they are not part of the judicial system. They're under the executive branch. Is that how you understand it? Right. They're under the executive branch.
And are they looking to expand the number? I mean, the number
Yes.
is crazy. Are they looking to expand the number of judges?
They're looking to expand how they do, and that I think falls back to this. We have to understand, you've got an administration that seems very hardened to the system. They're very stuck in one gear. And so while I don't know as a fact, I don't think that it's too far-fetched to believe that those gears can get slowed down and levers can be pulled at any given time. So, I don't know.
And I would add that, because I listen to NPR, the stories of the judges that have been dismissed for no cause, immigration judges that have been dismissed, and judges being put in their place. Immigration, if you haven't caught on by now, is very complicated. The law is very complicated. And so judges are being put in those judgeships that don't have a background in immigration.
I think military judges are also being placed in some of those roles
I think I agree.
against their will.
Yeah, there have been some the JAG officers, Judge Advocate General's Corps, they've been gutted from our military and then have gone to a regional and state level.
Do people from the Core Civic facility, do they leave the facility? I mean, other than deportation, is there a determination that maybe, okay, you are legal and you're gonna walk out these doors? Is there help for anybody who gets released from the facility?
Not on a state or federal level. Again, this is where community comes in. The sisters are part of this. The CAC is a part of this. There's other groups in this area that are part of that. I think each one of us has a role, but we all know it is complicated and it's heavy. The CAC, we focus on trying to get volunteers in the facility. We focus on trying to get resources. We're doing care bags right now. So to complement the supplies that the detainees get in processing, that's an issue that we have. We are a small group. We can't do more. The Sisters of Charity not only have a depth of experience, but they have more resources. So you guys are able to get in there and do care. I know you do a lot of other things too. But the resources that follow once an order is given for release or deportation, that goes deeper than us. That falls on some other group, some other person who's willing to step up and do it, because if they don't, then no, it's not there.
At the training, we found out too that some people bond out. They pay a certain amount of money once a bond is fixed, and then they can leave under certain conditions. I'm sure that there's probably some ankle monitor or something, but they can still leave the facility. But it depends on their court process and what happens at the judge level, I guess.
Right, the judge can determine a bond, right?
Yes.
I think that has to go through the court if
Yeah.
they're bond out.
And how many lawyers, does everybody have a lawyer?
Everybody does not have a lawyer, and honestly, there's not a lot of immigration lawyers. Immigration law is, I think it's a few levels higher than a local lawyer. It's not an easy thing. It's complicated. So we don't have a lot. On our board, we have one, Michael, and he talks about how just for him to get through 4 or 5 cases is difficult. And by the way, these are easy cases. He hasn't even gotten to the complicated ones because they take more. He doesn't have a team. And most of the time, immigration lawyers, by the way, are volunteers because there's no money in immigration case.
I wanted just to talk a little bit about the detention center in Cottonwood Falls, Kansas. This is a tiny town out in Chase County, and there is a lady who has been administering to them. She is also then notified by the warden when someone is coming out, and she and her team take them to Emporia, to the bus station or somewhere else. So at least she knows that they're out and safe, basically. I thought that was a really good idea. I'm sorry I was there the other week and I didn't seek her out, but I'm sure I can find out who that is.
If you do, I would definitely like to know.
Yeah.
So I'm connected with her.
Oh, really?
There's a difference in the way it operates though, because this is an ICE detention center and that's a county jail.
Right.
So, Misty, or the warden here, she doesn't get details on exact information on when they're gonna be released and all that stuff, so, or she doesn't get a lot of head time sometimes. Kay, out in Chase County, she, works with the warden there, the sheriff's department, and they're able to better coordinate.
I see.
So, there are community groups and community networks here in Kansas City that do keep an eye on things and do talk to some of the families, and they're able to offer support afterwards, so. The setup's a little different, but I do have conversations with her on how she does things.
Yes, thank you.
And just to piggyback off what Ashley said, because it brought up, so everybody understands how this works, because I honestly only found out more recently, when this is an ICE detention center. ICE has offices in that detention center for case managers. When there's an order for this term, a deportation order, this one has gotten confusing to a bunch of people when we heard it on the board. And then even I've tried to explain it to people before, and so hopefully I rehearsed this enough now. The deportation orders, if Misty Mackey, the warden, gets one, she could get it at any hour. She could get it at 11 o'clock at night when she's singing home for the next day. That's the beginning and the end of her knowledge. She is told, get this person ready and have them in or out processing. That's it. That's all that she gets to know. When we try to work on a local level with her, that's where things get even more complicated because we don't talk to ICE. Not because we don't want to. I mean, we have no access to ICE, nor would they probably work with us whatsoever. So you see our blind spot right there. The sisters, I'm sure, have the same blind spot because we can call Misty and say, hey, tell us where Jane or John Doe is going. She'll say, they're going outside. Because that's where they are. That they're going to go outside and they're going to be taken to nobody. She doesn't get to know that. And as a result, we don't get to know that. So when we're talking about, getting resources to a person, this has to happen lightning fast. That's the best that we can do. And that's a sad situation.
With all due respect, sir, you say undocumented. I'd like to bring to your attention, I don't know if it's ever crossed your mind, illegal aliens. As soon as they come across our border and they don't, I'd rather you didn't film me if you're filming me.
Okay.
As soon as they cross our border and they don't go through the right channels to be a citizen in this country, then sir, they're criminals. And that's the risk they run when so I didn't vote for Trump the last 2 times, quite frankly. And I know ICE is doing some things wrong, I admit that. But they're over here, a lot of them are criminals. They're running their drugs over here, the Hispanics and others. And I, for one, am sick of them. They took my brother's life. He was a veteran. He was an honor society member in high school, and he was a state employee driving to work. We were lifelong Catholics. Like I said, I've left the Catholic Church, and they're over here doing wrong. And the people.
I hate to cut you off, but we will talk about that afterwards for sure.
Yeah, but they need to be. Any inmate alive is going to complain about the way they're treated. They're going to say their food's bad.
Right.
They're all going to claim that, every last one of them, that they're no medical, that's what they all say.
I would like to give Sister Elena, you brought some visual aids. If we could,
Sure.
you could share, please?
Sure, I'll be glad to. First of all, I want you to know that I was an immigrant for 42 years in Peru. Now, when I left, I went because I was a missionary. I was going to do God's will. Did I realize all of the implications it meant to live in a foreign country? Nope, I didn't. Somebody took care of my passport. Mother Mary Ann Silla got me a visa, and I got on a plane, and I had a number of interesting details all the way there. When I got there, they took my passport away that had my visa in it. And I said, like any American citizen, you can't take my passport away. This is my security. And they explained to me that because they had to screen people to make sure they were legit, they had to take my passport and examine the visa just to make sure I was legitimate. Well, it was the first thing I knew that besides being a missionary, I was also an immigrant and also subject to the laws of the country. And after that, of course, I was very faithful about checking in and making sure I got there every year. So I did understand that, but my motivation for coming or going to Peru was not legal. It was missionary. It's missionary. So I'm going to tell you about a few people. And they all have different stories. And what I found out was there's a psalm, this Psalm 33, that says, "The thoughts of his heart are to all generations." Now, since I'm a God person, and besides, God comes into policy a lot. When the policy doesn't work, politicians always bring up God, so I feel free, right? So, this is the story of my finding out that I was going to Peru not just to evangelize, but to be evangelized by. To be for others, and to let others be for me. So, I found out what eating papaya on the back of a truck was because everybody shared the papaya. And I found people open to my being a different person there. So I brought some stories, just 5. I could tell you a whole lot more, but the time's limited. I'm gonna start with Anna. She's a hard worker, she's a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. She has a green card. And she got a green card because her husband proposed to her, and he had a green card, and he brought her from Mexico here. She goes and visits those grandkids every year, sometimes twice a year.
and she works hard cleaning houses so she can send back toys or whatever for the kids. She thought about getting a house here, but they've decided now the grandkids are there, so they bought a house in Mexico, and little by little they're furnishing it. And they'll go back as soon as her husband retires. He works in construction, by the way. This is Teresa. She's a wife. She's a leader in the church. She pays her taxes. She's consulted, most of these people have consulted immigration attorneys. And he says he probably cannot do anything for her. So her backup plan is trusting in God. And because she owns her own business and everything, she says, well, if I get deported, it must mean that God has a reason for me back in my home country. These are not their names, of course. I wouldn't dare reveal anybody's names or background. Louisa, mother, grandmother, she had long haul COVID, was in the hospital with a respirator for about 2 weeks. Her husband was deported years ago. But what could she do? Her kids are here, they're in school. She needs to stay where the kids are. My biggest concern for her, even though it's not hers, they live in a 3-room house. There's probably about 7 people or 8 people there, among them kids. All this whole summer, those kids haven't been able to go to a park. They're all U.S. citizens. Her grandkids are U.S. citizens too. But they can't go to a park because no adult can go with them, just because they're all afraid of anything that could happen. So they're basically in that house, and it has air conditioning, and it has a TV there. And she is so excited because school's gonna start and they can get out and get into another environment. Well, I think a lot of parents are glad when school starts anyway. She's one of them. Lovely woman, cooks for a living to bring in a little extra income. She's a mom and a nurse. She was an emergency room nurse in Mexico. And her husband was a teacher, and he has his own construction. They have one of the best families I've ever seen in terms of discipline, eating. She makes sure the kids gets to sports. And the kids said a long time ago, she has 3 of them, we want to go to Disneyland, Mom. And she says, great. She bought a piggy bank, and for 4 years, nobody got a Christmas present, or a birthday present, or a first communion present. Everything went into the piggy bank. Last year, thanks be to God, before people started checking out on things, they surprised the kids at spring break and said, we're going to Disneyland. And they got on a plane, flew to California, stayed with relatives, and the kids had their dream come true. They went to Disneyland. What can she do here? Well, she can continue to be supportive, and every year she makes sure that her kids go to Mexico so they feel more comfortable with her family. Because they're all U.S. citizen kids, but in case there is a deportation issue, they now feel comfortable in another country. And this is what she deals with. I have a lot of other people, and some of the people are TPS. Those were the Afghanistan people that I met. Good people. And they've made a new home. And well, no matter what anybody says, Afghanistan's not a safe place for people anymore, especially for women. So they've made their choice. One's got a husband who's a long-term truck driver, and the other one works in IT. He's just recently been moved to Seattle, and they have 2. So their stories are all different, and that's why I have different flowers for each one. It's impossible to say that immigrants are all the same. They are so different. But I invite you, if you get a chance, to meet some, get to know them, and find out just how different they are, as well as how different their stories are. I've been really, really blessed by the Lord because I've had a chance to meet them. And I hope you all get a chance to do that too.
Well, I'm sure we could talk forever, but we are out of